A last-minute equaliser for the home side. Joining me in the studio to discuss and analyse what we've just seen from the Alfredo Di Stefano Stadium, Pete Jensen and Andrea Orlandi. Andy, it seemed to me that Real Madrid were in control for practically the whole of the first half, and then Zinedine Zidane somewhat inexplicably changed things around and seemed to give, for a 15 or 20-minute period, a huge advantage to Real Sociedad, which they took advantage of and could even perhaps have caused more damage.
Yeah, absolutely, because Real Sociedad, after scoring the first goal, could have scored the second and killed the game. I'd love to hear from Zinedine Zidane why he made that no substitution, that tactical change, because they were in control, as you said. They only missed that goal to lead the game and control even more. But overall, in the first half, Real Sociedad couldn't really create any problems to Real Madrid. And then it took Casemiro off his holding midfield position into a back three, and there was a whole, a huge gap in there for Silva to dominate the game. And this is where Real Madrid started having problems. The fullbacks weren't pinned by the wingers, so there was no one there to go with Monreal and Gorosabel on the right. And a goal comes from across from Monreal, and Real Sociedad were in absolute control. Then with the substitutions, it went back to 4-3-3. It got back to basics, and Real Madrid started dominating it, but he could have lost the game by making a tactical substitution.
Real Sociedad will be disappointed, Pete, to be taking just a 1 point back to San Sebastian. But I thought overall it was a fairly great performance from them. There were some good moments, especially those 15-20 minutes that Andy's just explained so well. But I thought some of the key players were perhaps not quite at 100%.
Yeah, in the first half they were trying to play on the break, but the final ball was always letting them down, and Silva, until he was done the favour by Zidane, couldn't really find any space. But I thought, just as Zidane did Real Sociedad a favour, I thought Imanol did Real Madrid a favour, because late on, we know that coaches think what to do to keep the lead, put on another central defender into the area. But they encouraged Real Madrid and brought them onto them, and with the three centre-backs at the end, they still didn't stop Vinicius from scoring the goal. In fact, Barrenechea, it deflected it past the goalkeeper.
OK, well, was this the night when coaches will realise that this fad of three at the back should be put to one side? Why not let us know your opinions? You can do so, of course, by sending us your ideas via Twitter to the usual address at La Liga TV. And let's immediately remind ourselves.
I actually think he's too shy there, because he's behind Casemiro. It could have been a yard in front of it, because it wasn't offside at all. So I don't know. It was a strange movement from Alexander Isak, who's been in such great form. And then Real Madrid, Zinedine Zidane, he makes the three subs with Rodrigo. This is another chance from Casemiro. Rodrigo on the right, Vinicius on the left, and Hugo Duro through the middle, and it was a completely different Real Madrid.
Good to see Valverde and Rodrigo back on the pitch for Real Madrid, and Valverde does play a part in the goal. It's his back heel that sets up Lucas Vázquez for the cross. We saw Hugo Duro going close there, and at this point you couldn't really see if it was going to be the typical Madrid, they get the late goal, or in fact if it was just going to be one of those nights when the ball wouldn't go in for them. Another opportunity for Isak at the other end, but eventually late on the Madrid equaliser comes.
There comes a time, Andy, when you're really being battered like Real Sociedad were for the last quarter of the game. Chance after chance after chance.
This is the goal.
This is the goal where you just know Madrid are going to end up scoring.
Yeah, and I think that Pete said it. The substitution, bringing on a third centre-back, actually gives a message to the players. We're struggling, we have to defend, and naturally you tend to get deeper and deeper and deeper, and this is when chances come. And against Real Madrid, you can't give them anything, because somehow they're going to score, and this is what happened. Vinicius scoring actually was a very good finish in the box from Vinicius Jr.
Well, interestingly enough, for Zinedine Zidane, perhaps at fault for that half-time tactical change, but then being able to rectify and make the changes, the substitutions, which were absolutely crucial in Madrid earning a share of the points at the end of the day. The first half, as we said, Real Sociedad came out a little bit quicker. There was comfort to Thibaut Courtois. There was also a pretty big shout for a penalty in the Real Madrid area, and then little by little Madrid got on top, and it was chance after chance after chance. Casemiro in particular had three, and as you can see, there's some pretty much backs to the wall defending going on from Real Sociedad, even in the first half.
Yeah, this is a block from Lenormand. He's going to have another block later on Asensio, as create problems to Real Sociedad. They were pressing high. Once they lost the ball, they were recovering quickly. So they were in absolute control. That's why I don't see and I don't understand why Zinedine Zidane changed something that was working.
More than anything, because in that first half, David Silva had no working well. So I agree with you. Why change it?
Yeah, and as Andrea pointed out before the game, the plan, what was behind the decision to play Isco was to kind of crowd that middle area. I thought Isco did okay in the first half, linking up with Kroos and with Modric. And they really were in complete control, and Real Sociedad were just living off scraps from counter-attacks, and they weren't making the most of them. It's just a bizarre change. I mean, you know, Zidane knows more than, you know, but he looks at that game and thinks, no, what we need to do is... I just don't understand. I'm as anxious as Andrea to find out what his answer is to the question they hopefully be asked after the game.
With a little bit of good fortune, we will hear from Zinedine Zidane if he gets down to the cameras quick enough. But let's look at the consequences of that change with the opening goal scored by Christian Portugues, a player who makes a bit of a habit of scoring against Real Madrid. There it is, the header, the cross perfectly weighted.
Well, he knows, you know, how to play against Real Madrid, but what's interesting about the goal is the build-up. David Silva on the ball plays the ball into Monreal completely unmarked because Asensio wasn't there anymore in the second half as he was playing closer to Mariano. Mendy is cutting between Gorosabel and Porto, doesn't really know where to go. Then he has to track back, and it's too late to try and challenge Porto in the air. So it's honestly the tactical change didn't work at all. It was perfect for Real.
The role of Silva in the move that leads up to the goal is probably the first time he's had more than a split second on the ball to think. He's had time to raise his head and look at his options.
And also the idea of playing the three at the back, presumably, is also that Mendy plays further forward, Lucas plays further forward on the other side. So then you're also expecting Mendy to get back and pick up Porto.
Yeah, but the thing is, they were already attacking down the flanks with Lucas and Mendy. So it wasn't like the case. Okay, we need to give them more freedom because we're not seeing them going forward. Actually, Lucas was brilliant on the right in the first half. So. I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, he certainly changed pretty soon after the goal, so he must have realised something was wrong. We can't hear from Zinedine Zidane at the moment, but we can hear from Real Sociedad manager Imanol Alguacil. Let's see if he's satisfied or disappointed with the point.
Well,
I can respect everyone's opinion, but I do really think that David was able to get on the ball today. We know that their midfielders are very good, but so are ours. Try and get the ball off very, very high-quality individuals. You know, it's always going to be tough. And we did well that after scoring our goal, we still tried to get a second. But in the end, they were able to saw two very good sides from La Liga Santander on display this evening.
Well, we just got there a moment late to hear what that question was when Imanol was responding, well, you can have your opinion, but I disagree. So we're not quite sure exactly what he was referring to. But I think it's fair to say that he saw a strong performance from Real Sociedad, especially in the second half. And as any manager visiting Real Madrid, you're not totally disappointed with a share of the points. As for Zinedine Zidane, well, we've spoken about the tactical change that neither Pete nor Andrea fully understand, which whether led directly to Porto's goal or not, Zinedine Zidane.
Well, he looked sharp. He looked fit. He looked like he'd been playing for a few games, and for Mariano, probably Not a good sign that Hugo Duro comes replacing you with 30 minutes to go. It's a man-to-man substitution, but actually the main thing he did, he got back to 4-3-3, and Casemiro was back playing in midfield. He was back being close to David Silva. He was back being dangerous as well going forward. So he had a couple of chances, really good headers. And Vinicius was good down the left, obviously scoring the equalizer, very important goal for himself as well to give him some confidence. And especially Rodrigo, I thought it was absolutely sensational down the right. And even when Valverde came on later on, he looked fit as well.
OK, one of the players who was sacrificed, of course, because of those changes was Isco Alarcón. I thought he'd performed pretty well. I thought he performed pretty well midweek as well in the Champions League. What was your opinion, Pete?
Yeah, if you think back to Isco's best football, you have to go back to when he was at Malaga under Pellegrini, and Pellegrini was playing pretty much 4-4-1-1, and Isco was the one behind the striker. Not a great deal of defensive responsibility, and just linking up with the midfielders behind him and the striker in front of him. And that's the position he loves to play in. The problem is at Madrid that usually is not available. Benzema comes in and it doesn't exist anymore. And he played it in midweek against Atalanta, and more or less in the same position in this game, and he did okay in the first half, but as against Atalanta there wasn't an end product of goals or assists, so you can't argue with them when you get taken off on the hour.
Okay, the other players you mentioned who got taken off, Mariano, and you said maybe that's not a positive message to him with 30 minutes to go, replaced by a direct competitor, Duro. How do you think Mariano did for the 60 minutes when he was on the park? Well,
to be fair, he had a chance in the first half hitting the crossbar. He had a couple of runs where once he was intelligent enough to hold it up and wait for his team to come up. In the other one, it was quite adventurous trying his luck from 30 yards. And he fought hard. The thing is, when you don't have the confidence from the coach, you need to be scoring goals, especially if you are the striker. As he did, remember when he started against Villarreal early on the season, it was his first start and he responded with a goal. Tonight it hasn't been the case, and with 30 minutes to go, especially in the second half where it was the whole team that weren't playing well, you're taking off and a youngster comes on as Hugo Duro. That tells me that, if Zinedine Zidane didn't trust him, now he doesn't trust him. So as soon as Benzema is back, he won't play.
OK, Pete, Andy, you both wondered what Zinedine Zidane would say. How would he explain or justify that tactical change at half-time? The best thing we can do is to go back to the Alfredo Di Stefano and hear from the man himself.
Bueno, yo creo que
I think that we had a good game overall. We had more than enough chances to win the game, especially in the first half. And we should have scored before the break. Change could have led to the goal. So you weren't completely happy with the high press. And what did you look for when you changed the formation again? And you changed the entire front three. Well, I made all three changes because they needed to get a bit of a rest, and I wanted to change something up front. And Vinicius worked out well.
Well, clearly Zinedine Zidane not quite as satisfied with the draw as his opposite number, Imanol Alguacil. That explanation clears everything up, Andy.
Yeah, well, maybe. Well, he wasn't happy with the pressure. I was saying, as I was co-commentating the game, that at times Real Madrid, when they press high, they tend to leave spaces at the back, and Real Sociedad didn't exploit that. And Imanol Alguacil said something I wasn't happy about was the last pass, the last decision. They could have hurt Real Madrid more in the first half because they didn't use the ball well. So yes, at times they didn't press well, but I don't know if playing with Casemiro at the back will allow you to press better, on the opposite half. It doesn't make sense to me, but obviously there is a reason, and that was the reason that Zidane used. To be honest, to get back into it, had to go back to 4-3-3, and this is what he did. So for me, he made a mistake and he made up for it. So obviously, fair play.
Which is the most important thing.
Exactly. He didn't stick to it. He realized that something wasn't working, and he got back to a 4-3-3 system. This is when he managed to get back into the game. But he had it under control. You know, Real Sociedad didn't really start, and you could see it from the first seconds in the second half. They had 2 corners in the space of 1 minute, no corners in the first half, and they were dominating the game and creating problems.
Pete, it's not the first time this season we've seen managers tinkering during games. Quite a few managers have changed formation in the middle of a game, changed it again. Is this a consequence, do you think, of the special circumstances of this season? Lots of tired legs, lots of injuries, lots of players having to play on more regularly than they perhaps used to. Is that why we're seeing so much tactical tinkering?
Well, you can make more changes now than ever before, so you know the doubt is there for the managers, whereas before the options were limited. But it's just a tendency to try and hold on late in a game, and you know, he could have left it as it was, Iguasil, and Madrid could have scored with a late header, and everyone would have said tomorrow, why didn't you put another centre back on? Why didn't you put Sangan on so that we head the balls out of the penalty area? But sometimes taking a step back, it just invites the opposition to pelt the balls into the area. And then I think there were 7 Real Sociedad players in the penalty area when the goal was scored, and they still couldn't stop Vinicius from scoring. So.
OK, well, that was the final game of match day 25. Let's remind ourselves of all of the results from this round of matches, which kicked off on Friday. Levante 1, Athletic Club 1. Saturday saw Eibar 1, Huesca 1, Sevilla 0, Barcelona 2, Alaves 0, Osasuna 1, and Getafe 3. Valencia 0. Yesterday kicked off with Celta 1, Valladolid 1, followed by Cádiz 0, Betis 1, Granada 2, Elche 1, Villarreal 0, Atletico 2. And as you've just seen, the final game of round 28, Real Madrid 1, Real Sociedad 1, which leaves the La Liga Santander table looking like this. Atletico Madrid at the top of the table. They have a 5-point advantage over second place Barcelona, tied on points with third place Real Madrid. Sevilla 5 points further back in fourth place is Real Sociedad and Betis in the 2 Europa League spots, 6 points behind Sevilla now, Real Sociedad. And at the bottom of the table, Alaves, Elche and Huesca in the relegation places. That's all the time we have for you. Pete Jensen, thanks a lot. Andy, a pleasure as always. Don't forget that Viva La Liga will be back at 7 o'clock Central European time tomorrow. And don't forget, it's not football, it's La Liga. Muy buenas.